I'm down to dunk.
And I'm down to dunk. I'm down to dunk.
This is J-Dub, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lindy Waters, and I'm down to dunk. I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Jay Will, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Kenneth Williams, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to dunk.
Will you say this is Lou Dort and I'm down to Dort?
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
Cracklin Oat Bran?
Have you had Cracklin Oat Bran?
No,
No. Okay.
but it's healthy.
Are you a big oat brand guy?
I'm a big Oat Bran guy.
Okay.
I think I would switch it with Fruity Pebbles.
Okay, eat faster. Don't put as much in the bowl.
You have a gallon of milk I can also take home.
You don't have milk at home?
One cinnamon toast.
Okay.
Crunch. Yeah. Cereal is great. Yeah.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Mondays. No, it's on Monday. Oh, my God.
Oh, my gosh. Andrew, start over.
Okay, let's start over. On Wednesdays. So tired. Is my good friend Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
Hey, Andrew, what's up?
Hey.
Pretty big. This is probably the biggest Wednesday pod since Bird Night, which wasn't even a Wednesday pod. In terms of like what happened just previously to the pod.
Yeah, totally. Because I think we got, draft night was fun, but we didn't do Wednesday pod. That was a Friday pod.
Wednesday pod.
Yeah, since Bird Night. This is the biggest one. I think we've all been kind of waiting a little bit to declare the Thunder like a rival. Like, are they really here? I don't know. They're pretty good. But are they that good? Are they actually going to get in the play-in? Like, I don't know. Like, I've been predicting that they're not going to get there for weeks now. That was wrong. That was a wrong prediction.
You've seen enough.
I have. I've seen enough, and I've also, frankly, seen enough of all the teams around them too. Like, this is a Thunder and Western Conference take. This isn't just like Thunder in isolation. But man, that win last night was a statement win for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
It was because if you think of them as a play-in team or a playoff team, like the Suns game, as fun as that was, it was also a home game. No KD, no DeAndre Ayton. They were favored in the game. They should have won that game if they are that team. Like, based on their net rating, they should win that game.
Yeah. This
game on the road against a team that has a lot to play for, trying to move up the standings to pass Phoenix.
Yeah.
Like that. I still haven't, we'll see. Maybe going into Thursday, I'll feel more confident. But I still go into these games like this where I'm thinking they'll probably lose. It'll probably be close.
I thought that's what was going to happen last night.
Yeah, and I still feel that way about this team.
Even Kawhi taking the ball down the court with
I was like, okay, he's
with
gonna
like
hit some
shot clock
mid-range
off.
pull-up.
Like, all right, he's going to get to that elbow jumper, and it's going to be curtains.
Yeah,
and Lou Dort said no.
Multiple times he said
times he said no. They said they kept saying, all right, we're gonna get Giddey onto Kawhi. He was like, nope. Like, let's try it again. Giddey onto Kawhi. Nope. All right, one more time. Giddey onto Kawhi. Nope. Oh crap! There's no time left. He has to just. He was so concerned with getting the switch that I think he actually lost track of the time.
It looked like he didn't know. It looked like he didn't have a plan beyond that.
Yeah, he was like, all right, let me cook Josh Giddey and let's get this over with.
Yeah, he was so tunnel vision because in my head, when he's dribbling up the court, I'm thinking, okay, he's either going to do a pull-up mid-range or like something's going to happen. He's going to kick it out to one of these shooters in the corner and they're going to take a three. And that wasn't even like on the menu at all. Like, he never once looked like he was considering passing the ball.
Yeah.
Which allowed Dort to have one of his best plays of the season, if not the best.
Yeah. That sequence of Dort fighting over screens, which most teams would just switch. Like, we're just going to switch. we've seen, how many times have you seen it in the playoffs where it's best player on the court for the offensive team versus
They
the
just
best
give 'em
defender
a
on the
switch.
other team, and then it's just barely a screen. And
Right.
It's just like, all right, you can have the worst defender now. Like, you can take him. It happens all the time in the NBA, and it drives me absolutely insane because those guys should be doing what Lou's doing. Lou could have just been like, all right, Giddy, we're gonna leave you out on an island. Good luck. Or, well, I just trust my teammates, like, whatever. No, you don't. You know that like, these best defenders on the team know that they're better and that they're better equipped to handle those guys. And Lou just kept fighting. It was amazing. It was an amazing sequence. The fact that he didn't even get a shot off. One, I think it was a lot of Dort, but then a lot of, like what I said earlier, that it's just kind of a brain fart by Kawhi. Like, what are you doing, Kawhi? Get to a spot and rise up. Like, you're a lot bigger. Your arms are a lot longer than Lou Dort's. Like, you're going to be able to get a shot off. It's going to be difficult, but, like, just go get a shot. Or, in most cases, guys will take a shot with like 5 seconds left just for the chance of an offensive rebound or just some other shenanigans that can happen if you're going to miss the shot. And I just think he absolutely lost track of time, and a lot of it was because of Lou Dort. I just don't think he was anticipating Lou Dort's energy there at the end of the game.
Yeah, and it was a weird game for Kawhi just generally because you see flashes of the old Kawhi. Like, right off the bat in that first quarter, I mean, the Clippers looked like they should be favorites for the championship. They were so terrifying on defense, just
and offensively
everywhere.
Yeah, they were. I felt like they were pressing a little bit too hard to start the game. They didn't. They looked like the young team to start the game.
Yeah.
Like, how many times did we see the young Thunder, like the Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant teams, do stuff like that, where it was just like, all right, it's time to win the game right now,
Yeah.
And like Westbrook did a lot of that at the beginning of the game, and I was just kind of sitting back thinking, okay, I'm not sure this is going to be sustainable, especially this kind of energy and effort.
Yeah.
Is not going to be sustainable. And it was just funny to see the team, like the youngest team in the league, second youngest team in the history of the NBA, be the team that was like, all right, settle down.
Yeah, we're just going to wait this out.
This will not last. You can't play like this for 48 minutes. We are going to just get into our sets. And then they went on like an 18-5 run and actually won the first quarter, which was crazy because I think they were down by as many as 14 at the beginning.
Yeah. But at the beginning, like, there was that steal on Shea by Kawhi.
Yeah.
Which looked like vintage Kawhi.
Yes.
Just like the way he poked the ball out. But then he gets in transition and you're like, man, he's not fast anymore. Like, they have plenty of time to catch up to him. And he drew the foul, so credit to him. But that was kind of what it was like with Kawhi, where you see these flashes of old Kawhi. And you're like, wow, that guy's still really, really good. But then you also see like what just time has done with Kawhi, or just the fact that he's having to play against someone like Lou Dort. And Kawhi's been awesome for the past, for multiple months in a row now.
Yeah, he's been incredible.
And he's going to have to continue to be like that, given what happened to Paul George, which we can talk about eventually. But that comeback in the first quarter was kind of unbelievable watching it, because when they were down, whatever they were down, like 18-4, it felt like they were down 40.
Yeah,
because they were just getting destroyed on both ends of the court. And then for them to come back and for them to take the lead with the lineup that was out there. I mean, imagine being told in October that in a March game, Mark is going to throw out a lineup that is J-Dub, Isaiah Joe, Lindy Waters, Ousmane Dieng, and Olivier Sarr. You would have said, oh, that makes sense. They're tanking. It's March. Like, that's a tanking lineup. Duh. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And for this team to have come so far, that wasn't even my first thought. My first thought when I saw that lineup was, oh, this is really good for J-Dub. This lineup kind of forces him to be aggressive.
Yeah.
Because they needed that. Like, we've been talking about how we want to see more lineups like that because it forces J-Dub to be aggressive, and he was aggressive in that role. And he was generating great shots for his teammates. Not all of them went in, but they were able. I think when he put that lineup in, they were down 5, and then by the end of the quarter, they were up 1.
Yeah.
Now, by the time they subbed that lineup out, I think they were back down like 3. So it ended up being like a +2. But the fact that that lineup was just like a normal lineup. And honestly, I don't know if you could obviously you could take J-Dub off the court and put someone else. But like this is the state of the Thunder roster where that would be like a back end roster lineup last year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden a back end roster lineup this year is like, oh yeah, that's fine. We're playing it at the end of a first quarter in a crucial game. And it kind of makes sense. Like, yeah, it's weird to see Olivier Sarr out there for so much, but I kind of get, surrounding J-Dub with shooters, and then we'll see what Jang does. It was so bizarre to me. And that lineup was kind of emblematic of just how far this team has come. I mean, it was only a few weeks ago where I was complaining so much about Lindy Waters' minutes. This was when he was still on the two-way and they'd signed Omarui. Mm-hmm. And now it's just like, oh, yeah, these are the Lindy minutes. It's just normal Lindy minutes, getting some minutes. He's a great shooter. Here we go.
Yeah. It speaks to the persistence that the Thunder have in staying to their own path. Because I think that any other team would be like, okay, look where we're at. We're one game below 500. We're right here in the mix. We could legitimately, they've played well enough to get to the actual playoffs and not just the play-in game.
Yeah.
And not just be like some cute play-in game. And so their persistence in playing Usman Jang 8 minutes, where I think most other teams would be like, all right, cool, Jang, go play for the Blue. The Blue are actually in town with the Thunder right now in LA. Go ahead and go play with the Blue if you want to get some burn. We need to play other guys. Like, no, we're going to play him. They played Olivier Sarr, which is to me, like,
that is still weird.
That is the persistent Thunder is what it is. Because it's like this idea, like when I say that, the idea is that we are going to continue to just tinker, and we're going to throw stuff out there that I'm sure they were like, I don't know what's going to happen when we throw Olivier Sarr out there. Let's find out.
Well, and it was weird because when he first comes in, you're thinking, okay, well, this is a response to Jay Will getting these early fouls.
Yeah.
Maybe he felt like he needed some size against Zubats, and that's just what that is. But then he starts the second half, and you're like, oh, okay, so this
like
is
19 minutes last night in a win.
Spotlight game for Olivier Sarr, apparently.
Yeah, and he did fine. Like, he was fine. He wasn't great. He did enough out there. He had a couple blocks. He had a nice block on Kawhi. He had a couple nice passes. Yeah.
There was a point in that game where he was like a plus 15 in like 6 minutes. And I was watching the game being like, I don't think this is because Olivier Sarr. I'm watching this game, but they're not losing these minutes. Like, he is not detracting from what's on the court, apparently. So I guess I just have to sit back and try to enjoy it.
Yeah. And I think this is how the Thunder are going to continue the regular season. I think once they get to the play-in, or if they make the playoffs, I think that we'll see something different. I don't think that they're going to be like, all right, guys, let's develop.
Who knows, man? Who knows? I'm playing game one, Olivier Sarr starting.
I feel pretty confident that the tinkering will stop for those games. But I don't think it's going to stop until we get there. And, if you're the Thunder, I think that you sit back and say, why would we stop? We've been doing this literally the entire season, and it's helped us figure some things out. I mean, if they weren't tinkering at the beginning of the season like this, like, do they really know that Isaiah Joe is this good? Do they give him that? Do they give him the chance? Like, maybe they do. Maybe he just shows off so much in practice that he elevates himself, but I'm not so sure that he, at this point in the season, playing 27 minutes and you feel good about it.
Yeah.
This is just kind of how they got here, is through all this like tinkering, and like they're not going to stop, and it's going to continue into next season. And honestly, they're 500, Alex, and it's March 22nd.
They're not just 500. They're 500, and all of the like expected wins models have them as like, oh, they probably should have won like 38 or 39 wins. To be a team that is technically like underachieving based on some of these models, because like when you look at their net rating, like they should have technically a better record. Like, you would much rather be in this situation than a team like playing over its head Like they are arguably underachieving right now. Like they
They're
should
fifth.
have more wins.
They're fifth in point differential in the Western Conference, better than the Clippers, Warriors, Mavericks, Timberwolves, Jazz, Lakers, Pelicans, all better than all of those teams. The only teams that have a better point differential is the Suns, Kings, Grizzlies, Nuggets.
Yeah, they have like the underlying numbers of a 4th or 5th seed in the West.
Yes.
Which is crazy. But that's also so exciting because that means and that's probably in part due to some of that tinkering that they're playing a little bit under where they should be.
Yeah,
but then you add Chet into that, and now of course you can start thinking crazy. But going back to Joe, I do think he is like the exhibit A of this is why we tinker, as you mentioned. And last night was one of the best like all around games I have seen from Isaiah Joe. My favorite sequence in that game was with 4 minutes left in the fourth. And this is in a game where Shea, starting at the end of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, is just like putting on a clinic in terms of getting to the rim. Some of his like most ridiculous finishes we've seen over and over again, every single possession.
Unreal.
So we're in that kind of a game. And meanwhile, Isaiah Joe is going one-on-one with Kawhi Leonard and taking him and pulling up from mid-range and making it, and then on the very next play, stealing the ball from Kawhi and gets the foul. And then right after that was the play where this was like Isaiah Joe's version of a heat check when he drove into the lane and shot the floater that airballed. But then I forget who it was that got the rebound and kicked it out, and that's when we got the crazy J-Dub dunk.
Yes,
that was just like an incredible sequence of events.
That was incredible. He also absolutely cooked Eric Gordon. In the second quarter. I mean, he took him off the dribble, like jab step, like hezzy crossover floater. I was like, wait, who is that? Like, what just happened? That was Isaiah Joe.
And for him to do that on a night when, I think he shot 2 of 7 from 3. It wasn't a good 3-point shooting night from Joe. And for him to show all these other things, and also defensively, like he continues to just hold up defensively. He continues to be solid when he needs to be solid. He actually had a couple of really nice plays last night where he was matched up. He ended up getting matched up one-on-one with either PG or Kawhi. I forget who it was. And just kind of holding up. He has been, I don't know.
He takes charges. He rebounds.
You got a charge on Westbrook.
I mean,
he got that huge offensive rebound towards the end of the game.
Yes. I mean, he is contributing in every way. And like I've been hesitant to say he's a piece of the future for the Thunder just because they're going to have so many picks and there's so much going on with him. But the development from the beginning of the season to now that he's had, just part of it is the system that they play in. It just injects confidence into these guys. They get to touch the basketball a lot. They get to be a part of the action. He's really good off of screens. He's somebody that can score in isolation that we saw twice last night. I think this team, the coaching staff and the players around him have made him a much better player. And I think that it's safe to say that he's a bench piece. He's kind of what we had hoped Trey Mann to be, honestly. A guy that can come in off the bench and get buckets.
That's actually kind of wild to think
he's
about.
A more solid defender than Trey is. He doesn't lack confidence ever. And a lot of that is the team he's playing for and just the guy that he is. I mean, the Thunder have found another gem and they have him really cheap for the next 2 years.
And they're to the point where imagine how good another guy would have to play to be playing better than Isaiah Joe. Like that player would have to be really good night to night because Joe has been overall pretty consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, his 3 ball is obviously the highlight, but even on the games when his 3 ball isn't falling, he's giving you something else.
Yeah.
Which just makes me super confident about his future with this team because he's not just like a one-trick guy. This isn't just like Duncan Robinson where he has to be shooting 45% from 3 or everything's going to fall off the cliff because there's not a lot else there. Like he has so much else going for him.
He's bringing it on both ends every night. Sometimes he's not big enough to guard some of the guys that he needs to.
Yeah.
But he's not a starter and he doesn't have to play 30 minutes a night. But I just think that he's somebody that if you were predicting a playoff rotation for the Thunder. Like he's firmly in that and is probably playing 30 plus minutes a night for the playoff Thunder. Which
he feels like the sixth man right now on this team.
Yeah, I think
you're going to see him every night. He's going to be relatively consistent, and now we're kind of starting to see some of those traditional sixth man traits with him, like cooking guys off the bounce somehow. But yeah, that was such a weird game because once Olivier Sarr got into the game, I'm thinking like, okay, I want them to go small eventually. And so like the whole game, I'm waiting for them to go small. I figure like it's got to be coming at some point.
They've been doing. It's how they beat the Suns. It's how they beat the Nets. And it's how, I mean, they're on a roll right now. I mean, they've won 7 of 9. Their only losses came to Phoenix without Shea and J-Dub, and then to the Raptors. Which
Andrew, you got to give them one more. They've won 8 of 10. They're 8-2.
Have they won 8 of 10?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. They've won 8 of 10. Holy smokes.
I mean, that's the best record over the last 10 games of any team in the NBA, tied with the Sixers.
And you start, and like, this is where I feel a tinge of just like, man, I just wish Kenrich Williams didn't get hurt, you know? And like, I also wish, man, I really wish Shea didn't get COVID, because that 5-game losing streak that happened, that where we started to think like, okay, well, maybe the 6th spot in the lottery is where we're headed. You know, where they lost to the Jazz, Suns, Kings twice, and Lakers. You thought, oh man, like if they just got like 2 of those, you know, which would have not been awesome, but would have been fine. If they just get 2 of those, I mean, they are at the 6th seed now.
They'd be in the 5th because they have the tiebreaker.
Yeah, they'd be at the 5th because they have the tiebreaker. I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah. And all that said, like they still have a great shot because they're going to play this Clippers team again on Thursday without PG, we assume. Then they play the Lakers. And then they have this run where, depending on what happens over the next couple games, I mean, Dame has been talking about how he doesn't want to be shut down, but he's like aware of the idea.
Whether they shut him down or not, that team stinks.
Yeah, like they can easily win that game. I shouldn't say easily. They can win that game.
6 in a row.
True. I know. I still don't want to get ahead of myself with some
Clippers,
of these teams.
Celtics, Knicks. They lost to the Pelicans. I mean, this is a tough schedule. Sixers and Celtics. You know, the last. I mean, they have been basically the opposite of the Thunder. I think they've been 2-8 in their last 10. The only wins they have are against the Pistons and Magic.
But if they can just get to that game, like even if they lose both of these next 2 games against the LA teams,
it's just totally possible.
To have Portland, Charlotte, Detroit, Indiana, I mean, that is a legit shot at 4-0. And if you do that, who knows where they are in the standings?
Yeah. I had a friend of mine text me middle of last week, and he said, my prediction is that the Thunder will get the 6th seed, you know, by the end of this. And I'm still thinking like, okay, I just can't mentally get there yet. I won't even let myself mentally get there. It's not out of the realm of possibility that actually happens. And some of it is the Thunder are playing very, very well. You know, they've been since January 1st. Joe Masato's wrote a piece about this, but since January 1st, they've been like the best team of this like clumped up bunch.
I know, and that's the thing. Like everything is telling us we should believe in this team.
Yeah, the numbers say it.
Yeah,
they played their like togetherness. Like after that Phoenix game when they're all huddled up and like Nick Gallo's over there not accepting high fives from J-Dub. Like you're like, this should all make us so excited, but we're just like we're just like a little bit timid. We're just like,
but also at the same time, I'm watching a game in March and Olivier Sarr is playing 19 minutes, and so like my brain is like, well, this doesn't make sense. This can't make sense. This can't be a team that's
wasn't even good at Kentucky. Like, how is that guy out here? Like, what's going on here?
So, yeah. So I am getting closer to like just allowing myself to be all in. I mean, I've been choose dumb this whole time.
Yeah.
But it's always been a thing where I believe in this team as a play-in team because I don't believe in the teams around them. The next step is actually just believing in this team as a playoff team. Totally. Because they're just good.
Yeah. We have a question from the chat from Josie Cook. Where does the season from SGA rank all time amongst Thunder seasons?
Wow.
I mean, I think he's going to be first team All NBA. I think that unless something crazy happens, I think he's going to make first team All NBA. I think it'll be he and Luka.
I mean, so off the top of my head, obviously the KD MVP year, the Russ MVP year, and the Paul George third in the MVP voting year.
Yeah, is this better than the Paul George year? I guess would be my question after you say that.
I mean, it's more impressive just because of the expectations of the team.
Yeah, and the age of the team.
Yeah, and he is like the number one A guy on the team. Whereas Paul George, at that point, I mean, we're coming off of the MVP season with Westbrook a couple years prior, and so we still look at those guys as like 1A, 1B.
Yeah. Whereas
Shea is the clear leader, has so much on his plate night to night, and especially offensive responsibility. So maybe I would push it above the PG year. Now there's probably KD years where he didn't win MVP that should be included here, because KD was basically amazing every single season in OKC.
I think it's probably a top 5, top 6 season.
The other thing is Russ. I was thinking about this for a random reason, but I wanted to see how many times did Russ finish in the top 5 of MVP voting.
Yeah.
Because everyone only, they always treat his MVP like it's this outlier anomaly thing. He was top 5 in MVP voting 4 different times during his career.
Yeah. The rewriting of Russell Westbrook's career is so egregious.
And some of those came on those KD teams where he was getting MVP love.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, he wasn't winning, but he was getting like, 4th and 5th place votes in some of those seasons.
Remember how like Joakim Noah's was like so celebrated because he got 5th?
Yeah.
MVP voting, and like Paul George.
I remember Blake Griffin one year.
Got those were like wildly celebrated. Like you actually remember them.
Yeah.
With Russ, I wouldn't have been able to guess that was how many times.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to guess it. And it's because part of it is his own fault, because his mistakes are so loud and his game is so loud. You saw it last night. The way that he was trying to defend SGA there at the end, where Shea knew he was being way too aggressive and was just like, okay, like, if I just dribble, like I know that we have one more foul before we get in the bonus. If I just dribble near you, you're going to foul me.
Right.
And basically that's what he did. It didn't look like he had any intent of trying to get a shot off. He just knew like this dude is
so ugly,
so overly aggressive that he's going to foul me. And it's those moments where you're like, oh man. And then like, it just like does something to like people's brain chemistry when they watch him now and think, was he ever good? And like that just like seeps into people's brains, and it's just wrong. Like it's just absolutely wrong.
Yeah, the truth is those mistakes were always there. Like that's just part of the Russ experience.
Yeah. It's just that now like the great moments are just fewer.
Yeah, they're it's a little bit muted, but like he still had a nice game for them last night.
Yeah,
like,
he was not their problem.
No, he was not.
Their problem last night was their 3-point shooting was the number one.
Listen to this. So this is on Cleaning the Glass. Their half-court offense last night.
Oh, boy.
Scored 75 points per 100 possessions, which ranks in the 4th percentile. 4th.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, OKC wasn't much better. They were 95 points per 100 possessions just in the half-court.
Yeah.
And LA made up for it.
Offensive game. It was a really ugly offensive game.
Yeah. Or glass half full, Andrew. It was a great defensive battle. It was a great defensive battle.
Grudge match.
Yeah. But the other thing that screwed them, obviously, is the techs. Which were legitimately awful. Like, we can say as Thunder fans, so weak. And, if you want to say the first Terrence Mann tech was, like, valid because he was aggressively pointing, I suppose. But that doesn't happen unless they call that stupid tech on Kawhi, which if that guy had to ref Luka, if that ref had to guard Luka would play like 5 minutes every game because he'd be thrown out of every game. Like what Kawhi did, which is basically just clap because he was pissed off at the ref for making the call.
Yeah.
Like Luka does that every single possession.
Yeah. Luka does it. Draymond goes, the whole Warriors team just goes ape every time that things will go their way. They were so insane that the entire game against the Thunder. And they were doing things way more egregious than what Kawhi was. honestly,
and for that to
them.
snowball into Terrence Mann being ejected, it was just so stupid.
That made no sense. That made no sense. That's a time where you just try to get them to calm down, and if they don't calm down and they keep going, then you can give him one tech and say stop.
Yeah.
But the fact that they eject, and that's where, it takes luck to get to where you want to go sometimes. And honestly, that's a little lucky for the Thunder because Terrence Mann was honestly one of the best 3 players on the court for the Clippers.
Yeah, he was.
And to lose him, and then the minutes, basically it just opened up more minutes for guys like Marcus Morris, who was horrible last night.
They have to have better options than him.
He couldn't defend. His shot wasn't falling. He was just putrid last night. Takes 10 shots, makes 3 of them. He just isn't good enough to play out there. Batum wasn't great either. Robert Covington couldn't hit anything. It was a struggle for them. And Terrence Mann was one of the guys who had it going. And it's a 1-point game. Is it crazy to think that Terrence Mann would have made the difference that night? It's not.
No, it's not.
And then obviously, the other piece, which is you don't want to call it luck for the Thunder, you want to call it bad luck for the Clippers, is that Paul George got hurt.
Yeah, on a weird play.
Yeah, he kind of landed weird on his leg and collided with Dort, and it looks bad. You got to see the replay. They showed the angle where you can kind of see his
leg go
back. Yeah, hyperextend. He couldn't walk on his own power. He left the arena in crutches. He had to have help to get back to the locker room initially. I don't think there's been any reporting on it to this point in the day at 10 a.m. Central Time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a huge bummer for the Clippers. And another piece of if Paul George is in there at the end of the game, is there something different? Maybe PG gets that shot. We've seen PG hit clutch shots in his career
already in that game. And Law Murray wrote about this for The Athletic this morning, how Paul George has had this kind of up and down season because he's just been struggling with these nagging injuries.
Yeah.
And he eventually gets healthy, starting at the early part of March. And he was talking about how in some games, he was throwing down dunks, after the whistle had blown, just kind of showing off that, hey, I'm kind of back. I can do things that I wasn't able to do a few months ago. Yeah. And in this game, we see him have that poster over J. Will in the first quarter. And then he had the 360 dunk in half court.
Dude, the
offense.
The 360 half court was so sick. That was vintage PG.
The point being, he was clearly feeling good, and he was playing really well for that team. And for it to happen like that, it could potentially be devastating for them. You hope, and Giannis has probably spoiled us in this sense because we saw Giannis have a similar injury and come back and play really well in the NBA Finals. But on the other hand, when Giannis was coming back, he knew there was a limited number of games he needed to have to be able to play.
Yeah.
Whereas, if Paul George comes back, they still theoretically have the entire a playoff run ahead of them.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's scary. So I would assume that they're going to take their time with him, and not rush him back, because Giannis came back, I think, within 7 days of him having that hyperextension.
Insane.
I think the best case scenario for them is if they can hold him out till the playoffs and just kind of hold on the rest of the season. Their schedule isn't crazy, but having to do it without Paul George, Kawhi is just going to have to play, 40 minutes a night for some of these games.
That's kind of the scary thing. Is that now it's hey, Kawhi, you have to be healthy and you have to play a ton.
Because they're not playing the best of the best, but they're playing all teams that have something to fight for, except for Portland, second to the last game. They have OKC again, Pelicans, Bulls, Memphis, Pelicans, Lakers, Portland, Phoenix.
Yeah.
Other than Portland, all those teams still feel like they're in it and are fighting for something. And so it's not going to be the easiest schedule.
Yeah.
At the same time, a lot of those are home games. I think, let's see, they have 5 home games versus 4 away games. So they could potentially go like 500 the rest of the season, which is what they'd probably need to do.
Yeah.
But even still, like that is a huge blow. And there's still the possibility that this is more serious than that. I mean, that's like best case scenario, I feel like. Worst case scenario is he's just like done for the season. And that's another Clippers season just lost to time.
Yeah. I mean, you could easily see the Clippers fall to the play-in.
Yeah, and then it gets super dicey.
And then we saw what happened in the play-in with them last year. They were favored in every game they played. They played 2 games. They lost them both. Bird night. And they could be playing, who knows, if OKC moves up, they could be playing the Warriors. They could be playing Dallas with Luka coming back healthy. They could be playing the Lakers with LeBron coming back healthy. I mean, this is just such a massive game for them, and for it to end the way it did with all the long-term implications is just huge for their franchise. Yeah.
And you feel bad because you saw Steve Ballmer on the sidelines, Andrew. After one of those Westbrook dunks, he was going nuts. He was having a great time early in that game.
But I gotta say, I'm just fired up to be here today.
You got to get the new toilet drop.
Yeah, I've been delaying the toilet drop.
Toilets!
It's so funny. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and right after that, we're going to talk about, some play-in scenarios. We'll be right back. And we're back after that quick break. Al, currently the Thunder sit at 7th in the Western Conference because they own the tiebreaker.
Because of the Isaiah Joe game.
Isaiah Joe game, yes. It all goes back to the tinkering.
Yes, we were talking about the tiebreaker with the Dallas Mavericks. They played 3 times this season. OKC has the 2-1 edge, and is because of that 16-point comeback with 5 minutes left. When that was like really our first Isaiah Joe experience.
Yeah.
And they kind of just threw him in because they were down 16, or at least that's the way it felt watching it.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden he goes nuclear, and they get it to overtime, and they get that win, and now they have the tiebreaker.
Yeah, Isaiah Joe touches God, and now they have the tiebreaker. You look, so they would play the Mavericks in a 7-8. It would be a home play-in game for the Thunder against the Mavericks, who are a mess, mostly because of injuries. Some because of the Kyrie trade has just kind of left them with not as many options. So that would be an interesting one. They don't have as many defensive options. You know, if they have Dorian Finney-Smith still on the team, you know, that would be very helpful to them. That would be a very interesting matchup. I would fear Luka in a play-in game,
for
sure. And fear Kyrie in a play-in game. But that would be interesting. If they lost that game, they would still get another play-in game, another shot at it, which is the benefit of being 7-8, is that you have still
in another home game.
Yeah, in another home play-in game, and it would be against Minnesota or Utah. And to be honest, I feel pretty good about either one of those teams right now. I don't know that those 2 teams will be the actual teams, but let's just say this is the scenario, Al. If the season ended today, which would be so weird, but if it did, what would your prediction be for OKC?
I would probably favor them in to win one of those 2 games. That's the nice thing about that 7 seed, getting the guaranteed 2 home games if you need them. I mean,
one, it would be incredible to have that atmosphere twice in OKC.
Yeah, because we just started to see it with the Suns game, and it would be that, you know, ratchet it up even a few more notches if they got to a play-in game.
Yeah.
So it would be hard for me to not favor them. Like, the only reason you wouldn't favor them is because, in the same way that, like, I'm still struggling to buy into OKC as, like, yeah, this is like a definite playoff team.
Our brains are like left in the past right now, Al.
These other teams, I'm like giving the benefit of the doubt to, which I shouldn't be doing.
They've wanted it all year, and they've like been planning for this, except for the Jazz. Everybody else is like, obviously, Dallas, who made the Western Conference Finals last year. Minnesota, who made a giant trade this past summer to get Rudy Gobert and to upgrade their roster. And you thought, oh man, this is definitely a top 6 team in the West. Nope. Yeah, I mean,
So
it's insane.
just like Dallas, like we talked about, yeah, we're scared of Luka. At the same time, like they have not been good with Luka and Kyrie. Like they have not been world beaters, and their defense is terrible. And so even in that type of a matchup, yeah, maybe you favor Dallas, but I also think it's going to be close because OKC is going to be able to score. I'm looking more at that 6 seed, Andrew. If we can get there and have a series against the Kings, who I would favor the Kings, but that would just be like so much fun in the playoffs to play the Kings.
I would want to travel for that series so badly. One, to be in the building for the first Kings playoff game in 16 years would be a ridiculous experience. It would be so much fun. And then to be back in Paycom, former Chesapeake Energy Arena, for the first playoff game since Russell Westbrook, or not since Russell Westbrook. Well, the first playoff game in the arena, since Russell Westbrook, because they played in the bubble. Like that would also be ridiculous. And is it impossible that the Thunder pull it? I think the Thunder have the best player in that series. And when you have the best player in the series, you know, you wish you had Kenrich in that matchup. Obviously, you wish you had Chet, but we got Sarr. So who knows?
Yeah, we got the final piece, Olivier Sarr. I mean, it's
Sarr time.
It's really that game on Thursday is huge now, because if they win that, they move to, I think, a half game back of the Clippers, and then it becomes like very real.
Yeah.
Whereas right now, like they're still a game and a half back. You know, the teams above them. I mean, it's Golden State. It's like how am I going to favor the Thunder over Golden State?
Yeah.
So, they keep surprising me. It's gone from me believing that like, oh yeah, they can definitely be the 10th seed. Look at these teams around them, to now it's like, oh yeah, they definitely could be in that 7-8 spot. And now I'm trying to like make that final jump to like, no, they're good enough to be the 5 or 6 seed, and arguably should be based on their closing schedule.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is, when this team started the rebuild, it hasn't been that long. It's been 2 seasons that they were tanking, and now that's over. And you look up, because teams like Denver and Phoenix and the Clippers and the Warriors were so good whenever we were tanking, it's hard to imagine the Thunder ever competing with them, because it's like, well, like, it also just feels like, man, we just got here. Like we just got here. How are we supposed to beat these teams that have cemented themselves as really good teams in the West? But
and that's where it does feel like that 50-win season. Like, obviously there's been a lot of debate about whether like, oh, should we even bother making the play-in? Like, this team needs to pivot and try to maximize their pick.
Yeah.
But the longer the season goes on, yes, they're not going to be winning 50 games, but the surprise, like the sense of arrival from the way in which this season is playing out, does have some similarities to that 50-win season.
Yeah.
Like, that team was better at that time. I mean, they won 50 games in a very tough Western Conference. But the way this team has similarly come out of nowhere, and arguably even more out of nowhere, because even back then, like, we still felt really highly about Kevin Durant by that point.
Yeah.
Going into that season. Westbrook, it was still like, I mean, that was Westbrook's second year, or was that his? Yeah, that was his second year.
Yeah.
So that, his future was still up in the air. But yeah, this team just continues to surprise me and gets me super excited. And you look at last night's game. We mentioned Isaiah Joe. We talked about Shea a little bit, but so many different guys had just solid games for them. I mean, Josh Giddey, I thought, had a really solid game.
Yeah. On both ends, I thought he played really well.
Yeah. He had a couple like legitimate offensive possessions against Paul George.
Mm-hmm.
And then J-Dub, bouncing back from that Suns game where he did kind of disappear through moments of that game, to come back and have, 20 points on 8 of 15 shooting, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. and some really loud plays too.
Yeah. J-Dub he just has these cathartic dunks where you're just like, when you're watching, you're just like, yes. Like you just like feel the emotion of the way that he's playing. And I did a podcast with Sam Vecini yesterday. It came out this morning. It was live on YouTube yesterday, but the actual podcast came out this morning. And there was a question posed to us in the chat. We talked a little bit about like contenders, but then we mostly talked about the Thunder. And a question was posed in the chat, like how many all-stars are on the current Thunder roster, including Chet? Not talking about a trade for a future all-star.
Yeah.
And the number was over under 3.5.
That's a high number.
Do you know what Sam Vecini said?
Did he say over?
Said over.
Who would be the fourth?
So Shea, J-Dub, Chet, and Giddey.
Wow. I can't get there with Giddey.
So the argument was, he said, listen, he's 20 years old, 16, 8, and 6. He said players that are 20 years old that do that are all-star level players.
I agree technically, but like there's so many guys that are going to be hitting these like stat qualifiers in this era.
True.
That I just can't get there right now with Giddey. I obviously like Giddey.
Yeah.
But an all-star in the Western Conference when they only take 12 guys, like that is a super high bar.
Yeah, so part of the qualifier with that for him was maybe Giddey's not on the Thunder when he does it.
Yeah.
Or maybe Giddey is an all-star one year and J-Dub isn't an all-star that year. You know,
Right.
It's not like you're getting all four in the same.
Like the Hawks.
Yeah, they would have to win like 65 games or something.
Right.
You know, and just be the runaway best team in the league, and all four of them are just running on all cylinders. But I mean, Sam Vecini was saying some stuff on this podcast. You should go listen to it.
It's fun when other people say it, because then I don't have like the pressure of it, because we watch this team every night and we've like lived these past 3 years, night in, night out. And so it's just hard for me to make that like final leap. Like I just kind of want to see it first, but recently they've just been proving it night after night after night.
Yeah. I don't know. Giddey's been really impressive lately. And the fact that he's so young and is getting stronger, and there was a moment where he really used his strength. I can't remember who was defending. It was either Kawhi or Paul. And he just bumped them out of the way to shoot this like floating hook.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. Like, what does a 25-year-old Josh Giddey look like?
Dude, I think he might be, if he gets bigger, like, doesn't it make sense for him to be next to Chet potentially?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, certainly guarding fours, makes sense for his future. Just because I think it's going to get harder for him to guard wings. And we saw last night that Kawhi was like, please, that guy now,
which is weird, because I actually thought Giddey had like a pretty nice defensive game for.
He did.
Which we should point out, like, this is kind of the perfect team for Giddey to defend, because it's like so many older, slower vets.
I was going to say, no guy that's can actually blow by him.
That's like maybe if you get matched up on Westbrook in transition, it's going to look bad. Like maybe Terrence Mann could do something too, but he was ejected. Yeah, like the rest of those guys on that team, you're like, okay, Giddey can probably hold up in this scenario.
Yeah. I think Sam is like completely sold on J-Dub being like a star player. Period.
It's hard not to be.
It would honestly be a disappointment at today if he didn't get there, because he's on that trajectory. I mean, shooting 50% from the field, averaging what he has over the last, since January or whatever. I mean, he's been ridiculous. He's been an all-star level player as a rookie, and like give him a full summer of training, like NBA level training, and like he's definitely a second-year guy that I don't think should play summer league. There's that level of player where you're like, oh yeah, they don't need to go to summer league.
Put Trey back out there.
Yeah, put Trey Mann back out there. Do not make J-Dub play summer league. Maybe he'll want to, like Giddy did. Like Giddy really wanted to play, but he's had a better rookie season than Giddy. I mean, he's just been and it's just easy to see his game translating and him becoming this, Vicini on a pod last week kind of threw out the idea that he's like a Luka light or a combination of Jimmy Butler and Jaylen Brown. It's like, boy, like that's where you feel good about them making it now and why they're declaring themselves now. And you don't feel like, oh man, they really needed one more guy. Like I look at this draft and I don't think necessarily they need to have one of those guys in the top 8. If you could get in the top 3, like, yeah, you feel great about that. Awesome. Cool. But if they landed at like 7 or 8, is that guy really changing the trajectory of the Thunder? Like, I'm not so sure. And I do think there's a lot of really good guys in this draft through like 20. And so if they can still find somebody in the range they're going to be picking that can help, or they can make a trade to get whoever they really want at like 9 or whatever. Like those picks can be available. So I really feel really good about the core group of SGA, J-Dub, Giddy, Chet, throw Dort in there, throw Isaiah Joe in there, however you feel about Jay Will or whoever else. They can fill in those other pieces with the draft picks that they have either through the draft or through trade. And you feel really good about that because they have so many. And I think they have the stars that they have been wanting. I think that they're here. I think 2 of them are on the roster now, perhaps 3. And then I think the 3rd or 4th is going to start next year. I mean, I've been watching Chet, and you just start to get real crazy in your brain because this guy looks so good and the foot looks healed. He looks like somebody that's going to contribute at a high level. If he can shoot anywhere like he was the other day in front of everybody in OKC, I mean, he made like 23s in a row.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my gosh, what is this going to be next year? And there's a lot to talk about before we get there, but you definitely can feel yourself going to crazy places, especially after a game like that last night, where it's Shea who's getting whatever he wants. It's J-Dub with 20 points. Dort shutting down Kawhi there at the end of the game. It was just
What do you think the over/under will be next season based on what we know right now? Like, what would it have to be for people to bet the under?
To bet the under, maybe like 47 to bet the under.
Wow. I was thinking, like, if I had to predict right now, I would guess it'll be like somewhere around, because it's always a number where if you're a fan of that team, you're like, how would they not get over that?
Of course they're going to get there.
You add Chet, that's obviously a couple more wins. I'm thinking like 43.5 or 44.5, something like in that range, where it seems like obvious, like, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, they might win 43 this year, though.
Is that? Yeah, I guess that is, because they're at. No, that would be crazy. That would be 7 more wins. I mean, I guess they could do it. 2, 3,
They won 8 out of their last 10.
8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10 games left. They'd have to go 7-3.
I mean, if they went 7-3, would you be floored?
Would I be floored? So they'd have to win those 4 games in the middle, and then they'd have to win 3 other games out of the other 6. They have to go 500 against like the good teams.
Yeah. Is that too much to ask?
It feels like a lot to ask right now, but
let's say they just win 1 out of the next
8-2 last 10.
Then they lose to the Clippers Thursday. Kawhi is a supernova, and then they lose to the Lakers. They beat the Portland Trailblazers. All right, so they need to basically they could only lose 1 more game, I guess, which would be tough. But I think they could get to 40. I think they can get to 500 by the end of the season, or 42 wins.
Yeah,
because like I think. Here's the thing is that we haven't seen a true competitive Thunder team like this in March and April before.
And we should bring up that Daignault, before yesterday's game, I forget what the exact quote was, but he basically said we're more open to Shea playing second nights of back-to-back.
Yeah, we're not ruling it out that he's responding well to the treatments, and which basically is Shea's beaten down the door to play in both of these LA games is what I would guess.
Yeah, because you have the second night against the Lakers on Friday, and then you also have a second night against Detroit, which that one's at home. Charlotte, Detroit back-to-back.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he plays in both of those games, for one, Andrew, we might get to 70 games for Shea this season.
Yeah.
Which, it's
all in Shea, man. All in Shea.
Dude, I mean, we've all seen the stuff on Twitter, online, from a variety of people who have just been talking about, Shea's injuries, doing the conspiracy theory thing. If we can get to the end of the season and he's, 70 plus games played, it's just going to feel so gratifying, Andrew. And that's why I haven't really, done victory laps yet, because I want to see it through to the end. I want to see him hit that 70 game mark.
Yeah.
And for him to have this amazing season and just to see what the reaction is, Andrew, because I've been patiently waiting for it.
He's making first team All NBA.
Like, the tank is over. We can officially declare it. I mean, there were questions even up until a few weeks ago, when Mark first came out with that statement that we're going to manage him moving forward.
Hey, Jay sat in this chair, not in this chair, but in this spot 2 weeks ago, and said that the Thunder are going to tank the rest of the season. And
that was only 2 weeks ago. So with these last two games, but especially the game against the Clippers, I feel like we can finally officially say.
I felt like you weren't ready to jump on the bandwagon yet until last night. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not in terms of like, I didn't feel like they were like hard tanking or
no, just
like
for like this season.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It definitely took that Clippers game where I finally feel like, okay, the tank is in the rearview mirror. Like,
It pushed me there too.
We can now like do a retrospective podcast at some point of just the tank years, because it's done. Those 2 years, which were barely 2 years because of the shortened schedules.
Yeah.
It's over. Like, it was
really just 1 year that fans had to truly endure it because they couldn't even go to the games the first year.
In retrospect, it was kind of just like the perfect rebuild.
Yeah.
Because remember how we were talking about this at the beginning, we were using, the only one we really had as a model was the Sixers. And I forget with them, it was like 4 years, I think. And that final year, they won like 28 games. They like finally started to look like a team. But that was 4 years. So we were anticipating like this is going to be multi-year. And even early in this season, we were thinking, okay, this is going to be the final year. It's going to end up being 3 years. And you look around the league at some of these other teams who have been down there with Oklahoma City, and for them to have made this jump so fast is just so gratifying, Andrew, to have gone from the black eye of the league to now have Justin Termini is going to be forced to talk about this team, Andrew, in a positive way. How good does that feel? He's going to be forced. He won't be able to ignore it because they're going to be in a play-in matchup. He's going to have to think of something else to say about the team.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be so great.
Now,
none of us listen to it. So
but none of us will hear it, but it'll be great.
I didn't even know he existed before these past couple of years. Never heard his show once, but still, I'm assuming someone will listen to his show and will hear about it.
Oh man. Yeah, it's crazy. And I think it's just like on our show. I mean, the infamous Thursday pod was only like a year and change ago.
Was that the Summer League pod?
The Summer League pod where like Giddy goes out and Trey Mann had to leave the team too for whatever reason, and
we were trying to get hyped. People were trying to get me hyped about Aaron Wiggins, and I was like, "Come on, 55th pick."
And in retrospect, we should have been pretty hyped about Aaron Wiggins.
We should have, but at the time, it was like I just watched terrible basketball for months and months, and now you're trying to get me hyped about a 55th pick. We could have done this without being terrible for all this time. We could have traded up for a 55th pick.
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago. And to think in one, I mean, just the insane trades that Presti pulled off with Paul George and Russ are like that set the table, obviously, for this whole thing to be in motion. The fact that they had Shea to start the rebuild. I mean, the Thunder have never had a season without a either star or potential star on their team. Never. It's never
Totally, because that could have been like Michael Porter Jr. that the Clippers had drafted.
Yeah.
And Justin Robinson, and we're trading for MPJ, who good player, but
you'd feel fine about it, but he's not your number one or number two or even honestly, he's like a questionable number 3 building block.
Right. You know? Yeah. It's really worked out amazingly well. Yeah. And it's just wild to think about because of how much, you know what I mean? How much crap they've gotten. Throughout this period. And this is what you would want if you were, especially if you're a small market team.
Yeah.
And you ask, we're kind of coming to the end of whatever era we're in. What would be the ideal outcome? You would point to OKC at this point, regardless of what's going to happen in the future. For them to have this turnaround in 2 years and to make it back to the playoffs. I mean, I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but the average time it takes for a team who falls out of the playoffs to get back, like they're on the better side of that average.
Oh, they're actually skewing the average now.
Yeah.
They have skewed the average because I think it's like 5 or 6 seasons.
Yeah.
Is what the average is for teams to get back there. And obviously you have another team skewing that with the Sacramento Kings.
Right.
Who are...
But finally we have a number for the Kings. We can stop counting.
Yes. Finally we're there.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty insane that they are at this point, and being able to watch this young team develop it's been a joy. One, like the guys are all amazing people, which makes it even more fun to root for these guys. I think they fit this city so well. I think this team does, and just the play style, man. Like this is the kind of play style that, after the Westbrook era ended, that you're like, man, I wish we could have a team that, plays like the 14 Spurs or whatever. Yeah.
But not where most of the guys are 35 years old.
Yeah. Let's not have the overweight guys and the guys that are so old.
As good as they were. Let's try to do it, but with you.
As I was. Yeah. I mean, this is the beginning of something special.
It's almost, I mean, when we think about, eventually there are going to be books written about the Thunder franchise, and the most obvious book to write is about that KD Russ era, because there were so many twists and turns.
3 MVPs, eventually all living without a championship. Yeah.
But I think you can already start writing the book on this rebuild, because they wrote a book about the Sixers rebuild, which is called Tanking to the Top. If you haven't read it, it's really, really good.
Yep.
But like a book like that about this Thunder team with some behind the scenes stuff, I think would be awesome, because I do think this will be talked about as like the model rebuild, especially for a small market franchise going forward.
Yeah, we're actually going to talk about it on Point of Contention today. I have it as one of our topics because there was a piece by Kelly Iko and Sam Vecini that came out on The Athletic yesterday.
Yeah,
just talking about the Rockets rebuild, and the final question that Kelly asked Sam was, what's your confidence level in the success of this rebuild on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being extremely confident, and the success means getting back to the postseason in the next 3 seasons. So I said, okay, why don't we ask that for all the rebuilding teams, Rockets, Magic, Thunder, Pistons, Pacers. I'm not going to put the Spurs in there yet, just because it's only been 1 year and it's too hard to tell. And then obviously the draft this year is going to, make or break some of these teams.
Yeah.
But if you were to just take the draft out of it, the only team that is going to make it this year is obviously the Thunder. And then you just, like, how do you feel about the Magic and Pistons and Rockets and Pacers? I mean, those are typical NBA rebuilds. They take time. they have extreme ups and downs. I mean, the Rockets have had extreme ups and downs, and that has been it's tough. And like right now, they've played well lately, but still, like Sam Vecini said, I give my confidence level is a 4.
Yeah. He just did the Rockets, because I was going to say, of those teams, like the Magic are the team that I feel the most confident in outside of OKC, obviously, because I don't think they need to be one of the teams that gets super lucky in the draft to still be solid next season. I mean, they could end up, I picked them for my surprise team, which obviously isn't going to happen because Markelle Fultz got hurt, because since he came back, they would have easily cleared it.
Yeah. Fultz
But, they're at 30 wins already. Like they could get up to, 32 or 33 wins by the end of the season. And that's like a very solid season for the Orlando Magic.
Yeah. If that's what the Thunder did this year, we would say great progress.
It was kind of what I was expecting. So, I feel good about them. The Pacers are a weird one to me. I just don't know how much of what happened early in the season was real. I really like Halliburton. I like Miles Turner. Mathurin was so hot at the beginning of the season and has cooled off so substantially that I kind of want to see it again. But they have a good coach. If they get lucky, that's great. They would probably be like the second team. I'm still worried about the Pistons.
Yeah.
Just because I don't feel like they've had the time to even figure out what they really want to do. I mean, playing Cade and Jaden Ivey together with like Jalen Duren and whatever other big they're going to use, like that's going to take some time to figure out. And they really haven't had that chance yet outside of those, couple, 20 games or whatever Cade played early in the season.
Yeah. And Cade wasn't very good to start the season either.
Yeah. So they could be a team who starts off rough, kind of like the Magic did this year, and then slowly becomes like a competent 30-win team, 35-win team by the end of the season.
Yeah. And like the East is not easy. It's not going to just be, they're not just going to be a shoe-in to get there, because, the Wizards are always just going to be kind of hanging around. I think the Pacers are going to be hanging around. I think the Bulls are still going to want to be good next year. The Raptors aren't going away. The Hawks aren't going away. The Heat aren't going away. Maybe the Nets will go away, but I don't think they will. I think that they want to just kind of stay afloat. And then obviously like Knicks, Cavs, Sixers, Celtics, Bucks are just like cemented there. And so, they're at 16-57 right now. I mean, they're in year 4 of the rebuild, and they're at 16-57. I mean, that's honestly probably skews more toward normal rebuild than the Thunder's does.
Yeah.
Can you imagine after year 4 being 16-57 and just being like, oh man.
I mean, that's more similar to like the Cavs rebuild, where they were just bad, and then they eventually find the perfect guy, and then they make that trade for Jared Allen, and it all kind of comes together over one off season. That's going to happen for one of these teams, and they all have cap space, so there's a potential that any one of them could be the team that like all magically figures it out in one off season. Yeah, but it's not going to be all of them.
No, it won't
be.
All
these teams are still going to be trash next season.
Yeah, I think Houston's going to be maybe if Houston wins the lottery, maybe they're not, but I still think, they're 18-54 and they're on the same track as the Thunder. The Thunder have literally double the wins of the Houston Rockets right now.
Yeah, it's rough for them down there.
And it feels good. Today's a very fun day to be a Thunder fan.
There's gonna be pods about us. People are gonna be talking about the Thunder.
Pods.
There's gonna be pods, not just this one. There's gonna be other pods you can check out.
It's gonna be great. Yeah, this is the fun part of being. Enjoy this time. I just want to just make sure, like, don't get lost in the future if they're gonna have to trade this and do this, or I don't think that they have this piece. Like, just stop and like try your best to enjoy this, because this is the actual fun part. There's no pressure on this team. They're competitive. They're really fun. It's a great group of guys. They're easy to get behind. Like, this is the fun part. Enjoy this. Like, don't let yourself get stuck in like team building. Like, they need this. And if they don't have this, it's going to be like, just enjoy it. Like, just enjoy it. If they lose in round 1, like, boy, like I would have never even thought I would be able to say that sentence. If they lose in the play-in, I wouldn't have predicted that either. Like this is all.
And honestly, if they lose in the
Great.
play-in, the pick improves. So
Yeah, if they lose in the play-in, they get probably the 13th or 14th pick. I
there you
mean,
go.
you're feeling pretty good. You're feeling pretty good about that. So just enjoy it. Just enjoy the rest of this season. It's going to be really fun no matter what, just because this team they're actually good. So thanks so much for listening to our podcast. We'll be back on Friday. I think the whole FryPod crew will be here. I hope so.
Wow. After a big Thunder win, do you think, Andrew, can they get above 500?
Oh man. I don't want to predict that, but I think that's probably no PG in that game. It would be shocking, honestly, if he played. So
it would be the last time they were above 500.
Yeah,
they got to 500 with that overtime win over the Mavs to make them 3-3.
Yeah,
and then they won their next game against the Orlando Magic, and that was the last time they were above 500 when they were 4-3.
Yeah. Wow. They're gonna have a chance. They're gonna have a shot, man. If they win Thursday, the FryPod is gonna be absolutely just madness. It's gonna be madness. We're gonna go to some wild places.
Yeah, they'll probably be like the 6th seed at that point, or
probably be the
like
6th seed, and then you're looking at Lakers, Blazers, and then that just like cake back to back when they get home. I'll say this: if you can go, if you live in Oklahoma City, and you have any opportunity to go to any of these home games, like show up to the arena, find a way to get a ticket. If you have a friend that has season tickets and they're not going, fill those seats. Because when they return home against Charlotte Tuesday, March 28th, like that place better be rocking. That place better be insane. Because this is the kind of team that you get excited for. I mean, like in Portland, like people are still showing up to the arena.
Yeah, for sure.
And people are still loud for this just absolutely garbage Blazers team.
Yeah, they were showing up last year when I went to that terrible tank battle.
That's the thing. That's the thing that people don't get is that fans of other teams that aren't that good still show up. And the Thunder fans honestly have been disappointing. They haven't been showing up to these games the last 2 years, and that's fine. But now is the time to show up. Go to these games. We will talk to you guys again on Friday.